This is the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
Good afternoon, Tuscaloosa, Internet World, West Alabama. How are you doing today on this Joe Gaither Show? It's Wednesday, March 27th, right here on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. We appreciate everybody who is watching us today on Spotify. You're watching us on Twitter, on Facebook, and on YouTube. You're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. We're having a fun week so far. We've had a basketball-heavy week, as it should be, because Alabama is in the Sweet 16 against North Carolina on Thursday. But today's show is going to shift it back to football mostly, pretty much exclusively. We're going to talk about Alabama spring practice as the Crimson Tide concluded its 7th spring practice yesterday and has a scrimmage, first scrimmage of the spring ball tomorrow. And we're going to end up talking about several different things that we heard inside the weight room yesterday as we were talking to several different Alabama offensive coaches and players. So we'll talk several different offensive topics today on the show, and then we will round it out with a little what if with Derrick Henry, as Derrick Henry joined the Pivot podcast and revealed he almost left Alabama. So we'll talk about that at the end of the show. As always, you can subscribe to the show, the Joe Gaither Show on Bama Central, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. We appreciate it if you do that. Rate the show, send it to a friend. You can always jump in and join us on the comment section, or just join us. You can by sending me a message at Joe Gaither 6 on any of the social media machines that you like to use. So let's get right into it. Yesterday, we spent some time inside the Malmore Athletic Facility. The guys were in the Hank Crisp Indoor Facility. They were doing spring practice number 7. And we got to spend some time with who? With Brian Ellis, the tight ends coach, with Nick Sheridan, the offensive coordinator, and Jamarcus Shepard, the co-offensive coordinator / wide receivers coach. We got to spend time with Kobe Prentice, with Jaden Roberts, with Robbie Oot as well. So it was great to get some time with pretty much every position group outside of the quarterbacks. But offense, obviously, at the forefront yesterday, as that was the focus. So let's talk about what we heard on the offensive side. First, lots of talk about Caleb Odom. Caleb Odom apparently seems to be fully transitioned to the wide receiver, and there's no plans that he's going to be coming back to the tight end room. I asked Brian Ellis if he had any part or any discussion during that of the position change, and he said, nope, Caleb Odom was changed to wide receiver before I even got to campus. You obviously can watch the entire Brian Ellis interview right there on the BamaCentral YouTube channel. But Jamarcus Shepard basically said no plans at all to move him back to tight end. He is full-fledged wide receiver mode. We're going to give him the best chance to be the best wide receiver that he can be. Kobe Prentice was highly complimentary of Caleb Odom, and this is the true freshman. He's an incoming freshman. He early enrolled. He took part in bowl practice. So Kobe Prentice has gotten to see him a decent amount already outside of these 7 practices. But Kobe Prentice was highly complimentary of, he can move for a big guy. Look, Caleb Odom is 6'5", 215 pounds. And you think about it, okay, has Alabama really had a whole lot of success with big wide receivers in the last 2 decades? And the case is really no. I mean, you don't have anybody. I mean, Julio stands out. Julio Jones, obviously, the elite wide receiver that he was, Coach Saban's first recruit, only 6'3", 6'4", right in that range. 6'3", might be pushing 6'4". But Caleb Odom is full-fledged 6'5". He presents, or he gives you an element to the Alabama offense that they really haven't had. I know Derrick Henry was very, very tall, but never really got onto the field. Alabama's had taller receivers before over the last 2 decades, but they really haven't made impactful. They really haven't been, wide receiver 1, Derrick Henry. You never said that. These guys were, coming in for Robert Foster. Well, how tall was Robert Foster? Like 6'2"? Robert Foster. He wasn't. Robert Foster stands at 6'2". So like even he and spot duty, Alabama hasn't really had this 6'5", 6'6" receiver. It's going to be a lot of fun to see how they utilize that in the offense going forward. We know that Kalen DeBoer wants to get down the field, taking vertical shots and really challenging defenses at all three levels. Yesterday, Kobe Prentice saying, "Oh, he's like DK Metcalf. He's like DK Metcalf where he can just go up and get it. And if you're on the goal line, he can go up and get it on the goal line, outbody you." And so it's going to be a lot of fun to see Alabama with a different kind of weapon. I mean, really, it makes me think a little bit of O.J. Howard, but apparently Caleb Odom is a lot faster than O.J. Howard. Now, O.J. was a good bit more muscular than Caleb Odom currently is right now as he still should be a senior in high school, still should be finishing his senior year in high school over there at Carrollton, Georgia, but enrolled early to get ahead of the curve, and it sounds like he is impressing pretty much anybody and everybody who's watching him. So it's really interesting to me, like, where is he going to fit in the Alabama wide receiver room? You look in the wide receiver room, and it's loaded. There's talent. Every single player is 4-star or better. Every single player is highly athletic. And you've got really just stud after stud after stud, or really, why we say, potential after potential after potential. Because what do we really see? You've seen some of Kendrick Law, some highlights of Kendrick Law. You've seen some highlight plays from Kobe Prentice, and you've seen a highlight play of Jalen Hale or so. Outside of that, who's really produced in this Alabama wide receiver room? Really no one. And so a couple gadget plays here with Kendrick Law last season. It was Kobe Prentice that had the 78-yard touchdown pass against Arkansas to really get Alabama going. Kobe Prentice made some plays last year, but was he wide receiver one? No, absolutely not. So it's going to be interesting to see how the wide receivers shuffle out. And tomorrow's scrimmage is going to probably take a large step towards doing that. And we'll see more at A-Day, April 13th or so. So you're about 3-4 weeks away from A-Day. Are we? Let me double check ourselves. 1, 2, 3. 3 weekends away from A-Day. So we'll find out how this wide receiver room is going to shake out. But there's a lot of talent. There's a lot of bodies. There's a lot of similar bodies, and that's what makes me think that's what makes me so fascinated with Caleb Odom. Caleb Odom stands out as, oh my gosh, there's no one like the next closest wide receiver height-wise. They're all 6'1", so he's standing 4 inches taller than everybody else in that room. And if he can figure out some body control at the collegiate level, and if he can high point the ball and maybe become a hands catcher, which I think he already is a pretty good hands catcher, then he can see playing time early, I think, and it can make a real impact on this offense early. You look through the wide receivers, and you got Kendrick Law, Kobe Prentice, we just hit them, Jeremy Bernard, the transfer from Washington, Emmanuel Henderson, Jaron Hamilton, Cole Adams, and then you look at freshmen, other incoming freshmen, Bubba Hampton, Ryan Williams, Rico Scott, and Amari Jefferson. Those last 3 are not quite here yet. Everybody's so excited about Ryan Williams. It's going to be interesting to see, and I have a little bit of concern that you're going to see some defections in the wide receiver room again. You've seen wide receivers pretty much every transfer portal window leave Alabama. Now, Alabama's replaced them in their own ways, in different ways, but pretty much every window you've seen a receiver or two go into the portal. Will you see some of these guys that are, I'm a lot like the rest of these guys and I'm not getting playing time? Will you see somebody go into the portal? I'm not going to throw out names because I don't want to put that juju on anybody. I don't want to speculate for anybody, but with so many guys that are talented, I wonder if any of them are thinking about the transfer portal. Now, you got to take the flip side of the conversation. The offense is so highly conducive for wide receivers. Kobe Prentice yesterday said, "Oh man, I love it." He said, "I don't want to talk bad about the old offense, but I love this offense. It's so much fun. It's so much better for us." And so maybe none of them transfer. Maybe they all think they're going to be that next great dude in the Kalen DeBoer offense. And really, you see what happened at Washington this year. They had 2,000-yard receivers, and they would have had another. I think they're going to have 3 highly rated draft picks from the wide receiver room, led by Roma Dunes. So, like, maybe they see that and they say, okay, we're all getting rotation, and maybe they stay. But I won't be surprised just based on numbers alone, not on, I know this about this guy. No, nothing. I just based on numbers alone. You look at this wide receiver room, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 guys, and we haven't even gotten to the breaking news. Really, 11 guys on scholarship that you're going to have right now out of the wide receiver room if the 2024 season started today. Now, bad news from the practice field yesterday, coming from our friend Tony Sakalis and coming from our friends at On3 Sports. So really multiple insider outlets are reporting that Jalen Hale suffered a serious leg injury yesterday. We're talking about wide receivers. We're bringing up our friend Jalen Hale. Jalen Hale, you remember him catching the touchdown pass from Jalen Milroe in the Ole Miss game. Jalen Milroe takes the shot in the chest. Alabama's kind of down at the time. It's a big kind of, not a Hail Mary, but it's a deep shot. It's a deep shot, and Jalen Hale goes up and makes the reception, and really Alabama gets rolling from there. There's not a whole lot of information that I have from it outside of what was reported from On3 Sports, basically saying a lower leg injury, an ambulance was called. Tony Sakalis says basically the same thing from Tide Illustrated. Lower leg injury, an ambulance is called. So you don't know if that's a break, a leg break, an ankle break. You don't want to speculate. You don't know if it's a torn something. You don't know. And really, it's March. You never want anybody to get injured, but it does sound like Jalen Hale has suffered, not a boo-boo. It sounds like it's going to be a surgery might be required for Jalen Hale, and we wish him well in his recovery. You're still 160 some odd days away from Alabama getting kicked off. So it's that March, April, May, June, July, September. You're 7 months away. You're June, March, April, May, June. You're 3 months away from June, from summer. July, there's your fall camp into July, September. So if it's a break, you can get him back for the 2024 season. If it's a ligament tear, you're gonna look at it. I mean, you don't know. The timeline is so ambiguous, and so there's a lot of gray area there. But the unfortunate news and the bottom line is that Jalen Hale did suffer a kind of a significant lower leg injury yesterday at practice. So he is going to be on the shelf for the Crimson Tide. So you want to see him go through that recovery and be better on the other side. It's still, even with his injury, are so many guys. Like right now, the scholarship guys that are on campus, Kendrick Law, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys that I'm counting, scholarship guys: Kendrick Law, Kobe Prentice, Jeremy Bernard, Emmanuel Henderson, Jaron Hamilton, Cole Adams, Bubba Hampton, and Caleb Odom. 8 guys are on campus, and okay, so you're playing 3 at a time, and they're getting pretty well rotated. I just wonder if that rotation is going to get cut down when it comes to the fall, and if that rotation does get cut down, will some guys look elsewhere for other opportunities? Regardless, the excitement is very high about Caleb Odom. And so I'm going to be very curious to see what he does over the next 6-7 months to get ready for the 2024 season. If he can bulk up a little bit, get ready for the college game. I mean, he dominated at Carrollton. He dominated at Carrollton as a tight end / wide receiver. He kind of played time at both. But since he's been in Alabama, it's been all wide receiver. And goodness gracious, let your imagination go wild. 6'5" wide receiver going over the middle. Basically, you hold that safety, you let Ryan Williams go over the outside, you let Kendrick Law on the other side. Like, you're going to be really challenging. You're really going to be challenging some secondaries with various body types coming up in this Alabama offense. All right, let's talk about the offensive line, because that was another subject of conversation. Well, yesterday, Nick Sheridan talked about the centers. He talked about the tackles. He talked about the young guys, the 3 freshmen. There's a lot going on with the Alabama offensive line. And this offensive line last year has a lot to prove. You got a lot to prove. You gave up 49 sacks last year. That's what? Only 9 schools Only 9 schools gave up more throughout the entirety of Division I college football. You were what, 122nd, 122 in sacks allowed last year? Horrible. And I know, I understand there's a bit of responsibility that goes on Jalen Milroe as well. So it's not all on the offensive line. I understand that, but we're focusing on the offensive line during this point. They do have a lot to prove this year. You throw in the snapping issue that really never got better through the year. The pass protection seemed to get better at different points during the year. Obviously, Michigan had a field day in the Rose Bowl against Jalen Milroe, but the pass protection did seem largely to improve through the year. The snapping was one of those things. Oh my gosh. And I hate to be so critical of a single player, but the snapping was one of those things where it was consistent. It was so consistently inconsistent that you will see you'll get 10 good snaps in a row and you'll be feeling good about it, and then boom, there's your bad snap, and it's like, what the hell? What in the world? How did this happen? And so the bad snapping with the porous pass protection, communication issues. I mean, you're dealing with a true freshman at left tackle. You're, working in ideally, new guys trying to figure out who can play left tackle. And that's really where I want to get our conversation going, because the spring practice period so far has given us Elijah Pritchett, Tyler Booker, Parker Brailsford, Jaden Roberts, and Miles McVay. You're replacing really three guys. You're replacing 3 guys from last year's offensive line. Seth McLaughlin, J.C. Latham, and right now you are replacing Caden Proctor. Caden Proctor's over in Iowa, not participating in Iowa spring practice. You wonder what kind of shape he's going to be in, if he's going to be ready, if he's going to be prepared. And I would expect that he will be once summer gets started. He's been through it before. He went through as a freshman, so he understands where he needs to get his body to, I'm sure. But right now, you're replacing 3 starters on your offensive line. And so it becomes a question of, what do you do at tackle and what do you do at center? The guards are set. You're not moving Tyler Booker out. You're not moving Tyler Booker out unless John Hanna has more eligibility, right? And so Jaden Roberts was there yesterday talking to us, and Jaden Roberts looks like a freaking house. And a lot of people have talked about, Jaden Hulk Roberts. He does look like the Hulk. He was very nice and well-spoken yesterday, and you can see that at the BamaCentral YouTube channel if you want to. But those 2 positions are pretty much set. From there, it's like, what do you do at tackle? And really, you start at left tackle, and you say, okay, well, Elijah Pritchett, you got experience last year. You rotated it in and out with Caden Proctor last year, and boom, it's your job to lose. And so I wonder, what is going through the mind of Elijah Pritchett? We've talked a lot about Caden Proctor and how, you left Alabama, you go to Iowa, you're coming on back, and I'm reading today that he went on spring break vacation or so with some Alabama players, and that helps sway him back to the Crimson Tide. What are you thinking if you're Elijah Pritchett? If you're Elijah Pritchett, you lost your job to this guy last year. You didn't. It wasn't your job. You rotated in and out and ultimately lost the job, right? And then you go into the transfer portal for like a day and a half, literally not very long, and then you withdraw your name. You don't go to a new school. You don't announce for a new school. You withdraw your name and you come back to Tuscaloosa. Okay, great. And Caden Proctor leaves, and you think, oh, wow, my path to the left tackle position is as clear as it's ever been. I wonder if Elijah Pritchett had even considered moving to right tackle before Caden Proctor announced his transfer out to Iowa, because that's what I'm getting to. If Caden Proctor comes back, and when he comes back, it's pretty much going to happen. It sounds like it's a done deal. When Caden Proctor comes back, does Elijah Pritchett look himself in the mirror and say, well, I just lost my job to this guy last year, or he beat me out for the position last year. I want to play. I'm one of Alabama's 5 best linemen. Do I need to switch to right tackle? And so do you have a conversation with Elijah Pritchett? Are you I don't want to say wasting your time, because you're never wasting your time sharpening your craft and learning a position, whether it's left tackle or right tackle. I mean, tackle repetitions are tackle repetitions. Yeah, it's, you work with your left hand one way, your right hand the other way, like riding a bike and then reversing it. But I just I think the Caden Proctor situation creates complications along this offensive line because not only do you have to say, okay, does he become your starting left tackle in the fall, or is he working with the twos? Is he working with the threes? Or is it Caden Proctor that has to say, hey, buddy, Elijah Pritchett's learned this left tackle position. He's comfortable here. You've got to learn right tackle. I'm sure I can't imagine that would sit very well with Caden Proctor and his people. I mean, you just look at the money in the NFL, left tackle versus right tackle. Everybody wants to play on the left side, and understandably so. And I think Caden, got better at it last year. Did he start at a place? He started at a place that was not good enough for the Alabama standard. And I think he eventually got there. Now, I know the Rose Bowl performance was really not very good, but you got to take into consideration the foot injury that he's dealing with. You're not operating at 100%. You're going up against probably one of the nation's top 2 or 3 defensive line, and you just got beat in the Rose Bowl. But Caden Proctor clearly got better. So what do you do? Well, what do? You got Chris Kapilovic, new offensive line coach, who doesn't have pre-existing relationships with Elijah Pritchett, with Caden Proctor, with these, with Miles McVay, with Olasa Lennon, with Wilkin Formby. It's all new. It's new with all these guys. And so does he say, you know what, the best 5 is going to play, and I'm going to figure out how to plug in the best 5? You've got 2 of your best 5, Tyler Booker and Jaden Roberts. And I think that those 2 guys are going to be man movers this year. Big time man movers, and they're going to really be opening things up. And I think that a lot of the noise that you heard last summer about reestablishing the Bama standard and getting physical and we want to make them quit and everything that you heard last summer, I kind of wonder if it was a year away from manifesting itself. Tyler Booker and Jaden Roberts in the middle. You put yourself a Caden Proctor and Elijah Pritchett on your outside tackles in 2024, and you might have yourself a real mean offensive line. Then you go into the center position and you plug in Parker Brailsford, because I think this competition might be a little bit of a farce going on at the center position at the moment. You might have one of your best lines that you've had at the capstone in forever. I mean, Bryce Young, oh, dear Lord, was running for his life the year that he won his Heisman Trophy. Brian Robinson, I mean, good running back, hard-nosed running back. No holes being opened up for Brian Robinson the way they were in 2012, the way they were in 2011, the way they were in 2015 with some real attitude offensive linemen. So I'm excited about this offensive line, but I wonder about the chemistry, because right now you got, we just went over it, Elijah Pritchett, Booker, Brailsford, Roberts, and McVay, Miles McVay. If Elijah Pritchett does flip to the right tackle, what happens in your offensive line room? Does Miles McVay move down the depth chart? Do we lose sight of Wilkin Formby? Is everybody just cross-training? I mean, you would hope that they are, especially during the spring period. During the spring period, especially not necessarily much in fall camp, but spring period, cross-train them all. Cross-train them all right and left tackle. Wilkin Formby, Olasa Lennon. The last couple times we've seen Olasa Lennon, he's been playing guard, but I think that he's still got the tackle body type. It's going to be a lot of fun and very interesting to see how the chemistry shakes out with the new offensive line under Chris Kapilovic. And I think the guys have been very complimentary of Kapilovic yesterday. Obviously, the coaches are going to talk very good about each other in the public and in the media. But Nick Sheridan says, "Oh, he's an offensive line. He's an expert teacher. He's an expert teacher." You know, he started off saying, "Oh, he's an excellent." Oh, he's an expert teacher was his line. And so, yeah, you're just going to be complimentary of your coworkers for sure in the public. But I wonder, the energy, that's the thing that's noticeable, the palpable energy. And it's we're excited to do the media. We're excited to talk to the media. And like, granted, you don't have to be, it's not going to equate to wins or losses if you're excited to talk to the media, but it just seems like the general enthusiasm in the building. There's a heightened sense of enthusiasm to be at practice, to be at media sessions, to be in the building. The music is rocking. I'm just excited about what we're going to see with this Alabama football team. Do I think that they're going to go undefeated and win a national championship? Look, it's way too early to say any of that. And I think anybody who's talking about, oh, my national champion here in March is the Crimson Tide, I think you're being foolish doing that. You're way too early to even talk about any of that. But I like the direction you're going, that the Crimson Tide's going in. It's been fun to cover, and I think that it looks successful from my vantage point so far. It looks like you're getting the guys, excited to be at work. And really, that's the thing. Can you trick them to say, you know what, this is work, but this is not really work. You're playing a game, and we want to grind and be better than everybody else in the country. It sounds like really this staff in every single position room is revitalizing and re-energizing this Alabama roster. And so I wonder, and I'm encouraged about what that's going to look like as results-wise in the fall. Let's talk about tomorrow's scrimmage. Before we do talk about tomorrow's scrimmage, I want to tell you about our friends at Druid City Music Hall. They're having their next concert on Friday. Daniel Donatello, Cosmic Country. I was listening to it last night, so I could tell you guys a little bit about it. Think about a little bit of Allman Brothers mixed in with like some techie, like some EDM per se. It was very it was unusual, but I'm looking forward to seeing it in concert, and you can see it on Friday night at Druid City Music Hall. Daniel Donato, Cosmic Country. You can get your tickets at druidcitymusichall.com. Look, Druid City Music Hall is the premier place for live music on the Strip. I know you got the Tuscaloosa Amphitheater right down there by the river, but if you're on the Strip and you're looking for a nice concert venue to see live music, great stage, nice little double bar area, a very clean venue, and you're going to see some of the best acts right there at Druid City Music Hall. And you can get your tickets for Daniel Donato, Cosmic Country, for Friday night at druidcitymusichall.com. All right, Thursday scrimmage. Tomorrow's the 8th practice. And really, I think tomorrow is huge. I think these first 7 practices, we've been doing the whole, what are you seeing about this guy? What are you seeing out of that guy? Who's been performing well? And I think right now the coaches have been in a wait and see mode. I think the coaches have been hey, let's give the guys a little bit of morsels of the scheme and see how they deal with it. Another morsel of the scheme and see how they deal with it. And I've been feeling like the coaches have been patient. Per se, have been patient so far and have been very accommodating and very supportive. I think tomorrow turns the dial up a little bit. Turns the dial up as far as figuring out who's who and what's what for this team and with the new regime. Because I think right now the coaches, first 7 days of practice, look, you're out there trying to figure out, can I push Billy? Do I have to coddle Sammy? What do I have to say to Steve to get the most out of him? And obviously those are just fake generic names, but like there's thought processes, there's experimentation going on of, okay, is Billy going to be a real player for us in the fall, or is he just every so often making good plays? I think tomorrow's scrimmage, is going to go a long way to helping the staff get to know who they're dealing with, the players, helping the staff get to know the personnel. And will starters be end-all, be-all determined after tomorrow's scrimmage? Absolutely not. That's foolish to say. But I do think you can make a strong impression. First impressions on the new staff is massive. Is massive because you go out there and you mess up the first 3 plays that you're out there, and coach puts it on tonight when he looks at the film and he's like, well, dang, Billy, I thought Billy was picking up the scheme, but now that it's in live action, I'm seeing that he's not. And so you're going to see, I think, shuffling occur. You've been reading, You've been reading us at BamaCentral.com, and you've kind of picked up on what the depth chart's been doing over these 2 practice periods that we've had. And between practice period 1 and 2, not a whole lot of change. I think there's going to be not significant change. I'm not saying, Jalen Miller is going to go to the 4th string. What the heck? No, that's wild. That's silly. but I do think you'll get little tweaks, little tinkers. We've been talking about offensive line. I think you might, maybe this tackle needs to be ahead of that tackle. You talk about Parker Brailsford versus James Brockermeyer. Well, maybe, live action, maybe Brockermeyer does outperform Parker Brailsford and continues to stay in the fight and in the competition for that center position. Because right now, I think if Brailsford goes out tomorrow and has a real good day and says, hey, this is the same old Washington system that I ran last year, that I've run for the last 2 years with just a tweak here and a tweak there, and he performs well, then he's going to take a huge step forward in that center competition. You got to think about it. There's several positions where everything is secure. We hit on it earlier, just a minute ago. The guards. You're not moving Tyler Booker, and you're probably not moving Jaden Roberts out of their guard position this year. But everybody else who's fighting for time and fighting for position, look, Malachi Moore is going to be playing in the secondary. He's going to be playing one of those 5 back-end positions. But the corners, oh my gosh, we've talked about the corners before. Look, you look at Jaleel Hurley and Damani Jackson, and of course, on paper, they are the most experienced. So go ahead, throw them in there, the first reps. But if they don't do well tomorrow under live fire, if they can't communicate with their teammates, stay on the same page, and execute the schematics, look, they're not going to be deep into schematics tomorrow. It's still going to be 101 stuff. It's going to be Kalen DeBoer 101 and swarm defense 101 on both sides of the ball. But you still got to show what you've learned over these 7 days, how much you've retained over these 7 days, and can you make that retention and translate it to the field? I think it's going to be very, very important tomorrow. And look, I usually am not a proponent of spring scrimmages. I'm usually not somebody who's, this matters. But with it being a new staff, these guys have only seen you for 7 practices. How many practices have they had pads on, full pads on? 2 of the 7 practices. And that's not a knock. That's just the way college football is. But you don't know these guys quite well enough, in my opinion. You know them from film that you watched, and you know them from 7 days of work. Look, I can fake it for 7 days and be, be on my P's and Q's for 7 days. But when live fire happens, character shines through and your true nature shines through. So tomorrow, I think, is going to be, look, have you been on your P's and Q's with the coaches, and have you been on your P's and Q's through the first 7 days, giving maximum effort? Yeah, sure. How's it going to look when depth charts start to get changed, when live repetitions start to get handed out? I think it's going to be very interesting. And so, yeah, I do think tomorrow is a big day for Alabama football. We'll be trying to cover and find out everything we can from the scrimmage right inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. You can keep up with us at BamaCentral.com as Kalen DeBoer is going to talk after the scrimmage. I'll be in there for BamaCentral.com. You can find us at Joe Gaither 6 and at Bama Central on the X machine, and we'll have all your updates for whatever Kalen DeBoer says after tomorrow's scrimmage. I think it's huge. I think it's going to be huge. Now, he's not going to say a whole lot, I don't think, because I think he's pretty good at saying stuff without saying stuff. But I think that after practice, when DeBoer and when Sheridan and when Womack go into their respective meeting rooms and start putting on the film and breaking things down, I think there will be some changes that happen along the depth chart, and we'll start to see kind of the intrigue ramp up for spring practice. Let's get out of here for the day with a what-if topic. What if Derrick Henry joined the Pivot podcast? And you can find the Pivot pretty much everywhere that you find your podcast. They got their guy Ryan Clark and Channing Crowder, lots of great former NFL players running the Pivot. And the interesting thing to me was Derrick Henry, joining the Pivot, admitted that the entire 2013 season, Derrick Henry's freshman year, he wanted to play, obviously, but he was frustrated with his lack of playing time and considering transferring. And Nick Saban basically talked him into not transferring. But the most interesting thing to me was not that he was considering transferring. Look, you've seen that with lots of running backs. You've seen that with quarterbacks. You've seen it throughout the Alabama dynasty, throughout the Nick Saban dynasty. Coach Saban getting people to hang in there and wait their turn. but where he wanted to transfer to. Think about Derrick Henry. Derrick Henry, 2015 Heisman Trophy winner. 2,000? Yeah, is that what it was? 2,000 yards? 2,219 yards in 2015. 28 touchdowns with another 91 yards receiving. My man's was pretty much 2,300 yards from scrimmage in 2015 and unstoppable. Absolutely unstoppable. You think about his performance down there in Auburn, 40-something carries, and it was hand it off to Derrick again, and keep Auburn's offense off the field and basically grind this clock down and win it. Derrick Henry, hugely pivotal figure in the Alabama football lore. I mean, the second Heisman Trophy winner ever. It's Mark Ingram, and then Derrick Henry. If Derrick Henry transfers from Alabama to where? To Florida State. That's where he's thinking about transferring after his freshman year, his 2013 season. If he goes to Florida State, now, the transfer rules were not necessarily the same as they are today. He would have had to apply for a waiver. Now, would he have gotten the waiver? You never know. The NCAA was pretty fickle about that. But the 2014 Florida State season, 2014 Florida State is the defending national champions. They go undefeated and they win the national title, right, in Derrick Henry's freshman year, when Derrick is kind of that third, fourth guy in the backfield. He's thinking about transferring to Florida State, where they're bringing in Dalvin Cook in 2014. You're thinking about, if Derrick Henry gets himself a transfer and a waiver, a tandem of sophomore Derrick Henry and freshman Dalvin Cook. Oh my gosh. Now that 2014 team ended up going 13-1. 13-1, and let me get down to their schedule. They lost to Oregon. Yeah, they lost to Oregon in the semifinals. That was the first year of the playoffs. Yeah, in the first year of the playoffs, opposite Alabama losing to Ohio State, right? So they go 13-1, and then the next year they had a pretty good year again. 2015 they went 10-3. You think they would have been a whole lot better with Derrick Henry? Oh my gosh, the things that happen behind the scenes inside the Alabama football program to continue to keep the dynasty going. I mean, this is just one example. Derrick Henry, I'm frustrated. I've been the man everywhere I went. Yulee High School, I rushed for 2,000 yards in a season. I'm the only guy now who have rushed for 2,000 yards in high school, college, and in the NFL. So, I've been the man. Nick Saban basically says, yeah, you've been the man, but you don't know pass protections and you don't know the ins and outs of playing running back. You don't know how to set up your blocks as well. Basically, at Yulee High School, they said, give the ball to Derrick and go. And so he sits kind of on the bench the entire freshman year. Really, he gets into and really he's frustrated. Bowl season and all this is talked about in the Pivot podcast, and I thought it was a really interesting segment. Bowl season comes around, and it sounds honestly a whole lot like the Tua Tagovailoa situation. Bowl season comes around, he's getting reps in bowl practice, and he's thinking, oh boy, I'm about to play. We're playing Alabama's playing Oklahoma. I'm about to play. Maybe things are about to turn around for us. So Nick Saban calls him back into his office a couple days before that Sugar Bowl and says, "Look, Derrick, I gotta know, are you going to transfer or not? If you're not going to transfer, we'll get you some playing time in this game and we'll get your career really started. But if you are going to transfer, then sorry, I'm going to give the reps, give the opportunity to somebody else." And basically, Derrick said that was all he needed to hear, was that he was going to actually get some playing time. And what did he do? Didn't he have over 100 yards and had a 90-yard, 70-yard reception as well? He went crazy in that Oklahoma game, and everybody was excited about him ever since. And people were excited about him anyways, but the excitement really started to grow after that Oklahoma game. So what if he didn't listen to Nick Saban and says, you know what, I didn't like sitting on the bench here in 2013. I'm going to Florida State. I'm going to apply for a waiver. Look, he might have applied for a waiver, sat out a year, and just played that Heisman Trophy winning season at Florida State. How crazy. How very intertwined the two universities are. You think about Jake Coker, you think about Landon Dickerson. I mean, I know Jameis Winston didn't go to Alabama, but Hueytown native. There's just so many ties. And this year's football program, this year's football team, Roydell Williams is down there. You have a lot of guys. Terrence Ferguson is down there. Malik Benson is down there. You had a lot of guys leave Alabama and transfer to Florida State. So just Very interesting how tied the programs are together, and what a world it would have been. How different would it have been? Would Jimbo Fisher have won his second national championship? Would Derrick Henry, El Tractorcito, coming out of the backfield? Oh my gosh, how would he have punished? How would he have punished those ACC defenses? Look, I know the ACC, not bad football. It's not bad football. But it is a small step below as a whole SEC football, and so how badly would Derrick Henry have dominated in the Garnet and Gold for Florida State? So what if? That was an interesting tidbit on the Pivot podcast today, and you guys can check that out right there wherever you get your podcasts as well if you want to check out that episode with Derrick Henry. That's going to do it for my show today. I appreciate everybody who's watched us today. I appreciate everybody who's tuned in and joined us on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube. You watched us on any of those platforms at Joe Gaither 6. You might have watched us on YouTube at BamaCentral on the BamaCentral YouTube channel. You can subscribe to the BamaCentral YouTube channel. You can check out all of the interviews that we had yesterday inside the weight room with those football coaches and players at the BamaCentral YouTube channel. If you want to listen to me instead of watch it, you can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. We appreciate everybody who subscribed, rated, and reviewed the program. We love you even more if you've shared it with a friend. We'll get out of here for the day, and we'll be back to talk to you tomorrow right here on the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com.
Thanks for joining us on today's edition of the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral. Keep up with Joe on all his social media pages at Joe Gaither 6. Subscribe, rate, and review the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and be sure to read us daily at BamaCentral.com.